All right, so welcome back today. I'm usually on between, around 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is my name is Deborah Heiser. I'm an applied developmental psychologist, and I talk about midlife. I talk about mentoring. My specialties are midlife and aging. But everything I talk about is very relatable to any life stage and any age. So if you're watching and you are not in midlife, what I'm talking about is still going to be useful and helpful, most likely in whatever age you're in. So I hope that you find today helpful. Please feel free to put a comment in if there's something you want me to touch on, if there's something you want me to talk about in particular. I'm happy to talk about it. Just so you know, you can also find additional resources. I write for Psychology Today. The title of the blog is The Right Side of 40. I also have a Substack blog called The Right Side of 40. So you can find my writing there. And I talk a lot about midlife in those. Good to see you, Wasim. Nice to see you again today. Thank you for the like. I appreciate you. So if you're navigating midlife, any age, I have a couple of tips for you that I'm hoping will be useful. But again, if there's something specific that you'd like information about, please just put a message in the chat. So when we talk about midlife and we talk about any of the transitions that we're going through, midlife is all about change. Pretty much all of our lives are all about change, but midlife seems to be a time in our lives when change is a little bit harder for a lot of people because we usually have support from our parents or other people who are helping us to navigate our lives when we're younger. And when we're in midlife, we are in charge of it all. And there weren't a lot of guides before us to help to pave the way for some of the things that we're looking at while we're in midlife. So again, these are things that can be useful in whatever life stage you're in. But let's dig into this. So first of all, if you're in your 40s or your 50s and you feel like your life just exploded, maybe you have a divorce or a career change, or you're an empty nester, or you have health issues, whatever the issue is, this is something to take note of. Take a look here because midlife, having change and transition and new ways of thinking is normal. It's something that we don't think is normal when we're going through things, but it is normal. So, hello, good to see you. Nice to see you here today. Thanks for the comments in the chat. So, first of all, these are normal. You may not realize they're normal because maybe you didn't see them in your parents or people who are older, but they are. So, the first thing to do is to realize that we are shifting and changing. We're wanting to make impact. We're wanting to do things. We're wanting to matter when we're in midlife. And sometimes that can feel really difficult when we are in this stage to actually see it and feel it for ourselves. It can feel lonely. It can feel like, we're unsure if we're actually making impact or making change, or we might be unsure if we're doing the right thing for ourselves. So that's what really makes it feel like it's not normal for us. So again, I write a lot about this in Psychology Today, and also in my Substack blog that I have called The Right Side of 40. But this is a time when we're really looking to pivot. Pivoting is our key here. And most people look at transition as something that's passive, that they're going to transition from being an empty nester to, whatever life has unfolding for them. I'm going to retire. I'm going to just transition. It's going to happen to me. That's how most people look at transition. You're asking who I am. My name is Deborah Heiser. I'm an applied developmental psychologist. I have been specializing in midlife and aging for decades. I'm also the author of The Mentorship Edge. I was the founder and CEO of the Mentor Project for about 8 years. So you can find my writing out there. So that's a little bit about me. So thank you for that question. But we go from feeling like we have transitions waiting for us and that this is something passive, it's happening to us, but it's not. We have to reframe that to a pivot. This is a time for pivoting, a time for change. Pivot feels different than transition feels when we say that word. Pivot feels like we're active, we're doing it, we're causing it. Thank you. I appreciate that comment. These are the things that if we can change what feels passive and like we don't have control over and reframe it into something that we feel like we have control over, this is super helpful for us. So in your mind, think of a pivot. How often have you had to pivot? You've been pivoting your whole life. It doesn't matter what age you are. You've been pivoting. We've all had to pivot. We're good at it. And I've talked about this before, how if you are Gen X, if you're a boomer, you have pivoted. You know how to pivot. You didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have a computer. You didn't have GPS. You didn't have a remote control. You had a tape deck. You didn't even have the kind of streaming or radio that we have now. We know how to pivot. Doesn't matter how old you are, you know how to do that. If we reframe that and we say, oh, transition, these are transitions that happened, it feels like it happened to us. And that removes the control that we had in it. You made those pivots happen. You made your life. Yeah, sure. Daily happiness too. Big shout out to you. So when we make it so that we are in control and we're thinking of a pivot as something that we're doing, that we have control over, if we're thinking that life doesn't happen to me, I happen to choose my life and how it's going to work, that makes it feel like our life is not a series of challenges, but instead a series of opportunities. So if you look at the pivots that we made from moving from a wall phone with the long cord to a cell phone, that's an opportunity. If we move from not having a computer to a computer, those are opportunities rather than challenges. So just that little phrase change in your mind can make it feel very different. So if we think about that, most of us in midlife are also saying to ourselves, do I matter? What's my legacy? What else is there for me? And that's because we say those things because we're waiting. Oh, I will show my book. Here's my book. Oh, hold on. I have to remove somebody in here. Somebody is not being nice in the comments and saying naughty things. So I'm going to be removing some people. All right. So when we are going through, so just keep it all clean, guys, or don't comment, or I'm going to remove you. So if we think about all of these things, these pivots, if we're thinking about what's my legacy, do I matter? What else is there for me? That's passive. You're waiting for life. You are saying, gee, I wonder what's going to happen in my life. What do I have waiting for me? As opposed to saying, what am I doing? Taking the active pivot. Here, what do I have in front of me that I can access? What opportunities lie ahead for me? It's just a simple phrase change in our mind. So if we say, do I matter? Yeah, I matter. I make a difference every day, whether it's the same thing you've been doing every day. You go to work or you take care of your kids or you're doing whatever you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, you matter. What are you doing that's kind for others? What are you doing to make a difference? It could be something small. You check in on somebody, you say a kind thing to a person, you hold the door open for a person. It doesn't have to be big. You matter. What's your legacy? You're building your legacy every single day. So every day when you go out and you do anything at all, you say something kind to somebody, you hold the door open, you are putting yourself out in the world and you're modeling for others. You're making sure that the world gets to look the way you want it to look. Those small things that we usually don't give ourselves credit for are actually the things that are building our legacy. So we don't one day say, oh, I'm going to have a legacy. It's going to be a big check that I write. Now that's difficult for most of us to do, but what we're really doing, if you think about a rubber band, if I have like a rubber band here, and everybody's seen those big rubber band balls, if I curl this rubber band up and I add another to it, and then another to it, and another, I'm going to have a really big ball of rubber bands. That's what our small acts do that are building our legacy. Every one of those small things that we do adds up so that we have a big ball of rubber bands that makes big impact. So that is one of our things that we are doing when we're pivoting. When we say, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things that I want to do. I'm going to make sure that people know me for how I want to be known. I'm going to act like the person that I want people to remember me by. That's what we do. When we say, what else is there for me? That's a way of us saying to ourselves, what opportunities lie ahead for me? And we can all come up with opportunities. Maybe you say to yourself, I want to volunteer. I want to start a new company. I'm starting a new company. I just wrote a book last year. Like, these are things that we all can do. You can make one for your family. I have one. Where is it? It's not right here. But somebody in my family made a book of the entire family and the history of one of the, family with pictures. It wasn't a published book, but these are the kinds of things that we can do that make a big difference. That, we can say, what's ahead of me? It could be a hobby. It could be something that you enjoy. It could be picking up something that you used to do and bringing it out into your life again. It can be engaging in ways that you weren't before with people. Maybe you're spending more time with people and you couldn't because you were working all the time. Whatever it is, that is saying, what else is there for me? And that's what you get to choose. It's anything you want it to be. So begin to pivot from being led to leading. And you're leading yourself. You don't have to worry about being a leader with others. Just lead yourself. Be that leader for yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to come in and tell you what that box is that you need to check. You create the box that you want to check. And that's what makes that transition period from whatever you're in to seem exciting and interesting versus scary or passive. So if you are in any kind of a transition, you are in a relationship, career, health, caregiving, any of those, you can apply this to all of those. So it doesn't really matter what age you are. It just matters that you are acknowledging that you're in some kind of a transition phase with one of those. So if you were to think of midlife and how it feels today, you could do this for any life age that you're in. Think about that and think about how you feel about your relationships, how you feel about your career, how you feel if it's not career and it's school, how you feel about that, how you feel about your health, about caregiving, any of those things. Think about how you feel about those things. And really, focus on the emotional chaos. So midlife is messy. Midlife isn't the only messy stage. A lot of the life stages that we're in are messy. Adolescence is messy. So this isn't the only one, but most of us think we should have it all together in midlife. And so when it feels messy, it feels like we're not being successful. So if you are somebody who sits up at night and your brain is spinning at 2 a.m., you need to ground yourself and do a reset. Doesn't matter how old you are. This doesn't have to just be midlife. You can do some very simple things to just get yourself to reset. So you can name 3 things that you see. You could say, oh, I see a computer. I see a phone. I see a pen. You can move 3 body parts. You can name 3 things that you can hear. Wiggle your toes, roll your shoulders, stretch your fingers. What you want to do is get yourself away from thinking about whatever it is that you're ruminating over. You want to move yourself away from that and reset yourself. So simple grounding calms the nervous system and makes it easier to think clearly in the middle of any big transition. So when your mind is racing in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, you're thinking about something and you need to sort of distract yourself from that. move yourself to something that's grounding, something that you can relax with, and then get yourself to go back to sleep. Um, so when we're doing these sorts of things, this is a way to help ourselves to get through the messiness of whatever transition we're in. Um, yeah, you are putting in a comment here that that would be very distressing. I could see that feeling messy. I could see that feeling like you would need to do some grounding probably at night, or to feel like, how am I going to pivot with this? What am I going to do to feel in control of that? It sounds like you might feel in control of that now, but if you don't, you can try to take control of that and have that feeling of control by doing some of these things. And I'm sorry you're going through that. Um, so if you were to look at just saying one sentence, you're welcome. One sentence uh, today, in this next chapter of my life, I want more of. And what is that? What is that you want more of? Fill in that blank. Try to do that every day if you're feeling like, hey, I'm in the next chapter of my life. In this next chapter, yeah, that's a good one. Peace. I want more peace. Okay. So you have something to work with. You just gave yourself a little piece of control that you can work with. That's an opportunity. You can say to yourself, how can I get that? Is there something that I can do? What's the first tiny little thing that you can work towards? So when you say, I want more of, you can make that statement, and then you make that statement. And now, what's a tiny step that I can make towards that? What's one small act that I can do that will get me there? Now, that's something that you can do every day. You can work towards that, and you'll start to see the shift, that overwhelming sense of a messy transition can turn into something that you have structure to, that you can make change with. So this helps us to pivot our thinking from something passive, like, I don't have peace, I feel terrible, or I don't have, the things that I want in my career, or I feel lonely, or I feel whatever it is. These are the things that we can say, I want more of something, and work towards that. So we should also think, if you say that, the one thing that you want, add to that, how can I do one small thing to make myself have that? It might be an action that you're doing for yourself. You say to yourself, I want to do something that feels meaningful to me. It could be that you're reaching out to somebody. It could be that you're connecting more with others. Whatever that is, you have some control over that. So really, any of our life stage transitions that we're in, we need to feel control. Control is the main character here. And it's when we don't feel that control that we feel like it's messy and it's overwhelming. And we can ground ourselves. We can start with tiny steps that lead to, bigger impact later. And that's really what we want to do. So we want to give ourselves some anchors. And, you can try to choose 3 really tiny, steady habits that you can do that will be an anchor for you. It could be that you are going to put your steps in. You too. Have a great day. I'm glad you got a really good nugget. Thank you. And so, what you want to do is to try to find 3 steady habits, right? So maybe you say, I'm going to get steps in. Some people say, I'm going to look, thank you for the like. Some people say, I'm going to try to do 10,000 steps in a day. Maybe you do, I'm going to do a 5-minute walk. Maybe you say, I'm going to have a cup of water before a cup of coffee. Maybe you do 10 tech-free minutes before you go to bed. Just 3 tiny things. Don't make them big. Don't say, I'm going to go walk 5 miles. Say, I'm going to go walk 5 minutes. Don't say, I'm going to change my whole eating and drinking routine that I have. Like, I'm going to stop drinking coffee, or I'm going to, remove all kinds of things. Just one thing. Do 3 tiny, steady habits that you can maintain. This acts as an anchor. When you do it, it's a win. Count it as a win. I drank my cup of water before I had my cup of coffee. Yay, I have a win. I walked my 5 minutes. Great, I have a win. Most people try to dive right in with something big. I'm going to make a big change and it's going to be amazing. I'm going to cut out all carbs, or I'm going to walk 5 miles a day, or I'm going to do something huge. That ends up being a real potential for failure. And then you feel even more out of control. And that can be a problem. So, really, just 3 tiny, steady habits. You can build on those. If you start to do those for a week or more, do another, add another to it. You'll end up having turn into something that becomes a steady anchor for you. And link to your work. When we have predictable anchors, and this could be anything, link to your school, link to your work, any transition that you have feels less frightening when you have a predictable anchor and a sense of usefulness in your day. And you can find usefulness in your work or in your schoolwork or whatever you're doing. That's where you need to put your anchor. Hey, I'm bringing money in. I'm working towards my future. Whatever it is, that can be your daily anchor as well. So just today, choose one anchor that you're going to commit to. Just one. That's all you need to commit to. And then do one grounding exercise for yourself. And that's going to be something that's helpful. So when we shift in midlife, we need to shift from what I lost to what I can give. So a lot of people will think, oh, I lost 20/20 vision. Like, here I am with some reading glasses. This happened to me in midlife. It's shift to what can I give? So you can get buried in loss that you have, whether that's physical, like needing glasses, or it's something else, or you can really pivot to thinking, what can I give? What's valuable that I can still give? So midlife brings about an itch for change. This is when this is developmentally what we want to do. We want to start to give back and feel useful and leave a mark. And this is a time to not think of the things that we've lost or the things that scare us ahead of us, but what can I give now? So this is where you move from an external reward, like a title or a promotion, to any of the internal rewards that are going to make you feel good, like impact that you have on others, connection with others, any joy that you receive from doing certain things. These are things that you can get from mentorship and volunteering and philanthropy. And so there are some core ways that we can generate a piece of ourselves into others. And that's really, the core ways are mentoring, volunteering, and philanthropy. But think of just basic acts of kindness as well, where you're really modeling the things that you'd like life to be like by doing that with others. I know that when I go to work, there is a culture of holding the door open for the person that's coming up behind you. So even if you have to wait a little bit, somebody's, a few steps behind, people do that. Now, those sorts of things might feel small, but it makes you feel welcome and it makes you feel good when you're the recipient of it. And a person holding the door also feels good when somebody's so thankful when they have that door held for them. That's not a big thing. Count that. Work on that. Like, it could be anything that you're doing. I'm just giving a very simple example of something. So think of one person that you've mentored, anyone. It can be that you have helped a person with, a work project, a school project, anything. Maybe you helped them in something that you're good at and they're not good at. And reframe that to think of that as generativity. You're generating something of you out into the world. You're creating a legacy no matter what age you are. Legacy is for right now. It's not for later. And if we start thinking of that, that turns our midlife into feeling like transitions that can feel passive and scary to pivoting, which feels positive. Hey, Soul 8 Lens, good to see you. Thanks for the likes. Always great to see you. I love all your posts. Check out Soul 8 Lens. So He's a generative guy, so check him out. So some of the things that you can do are things like micro mentoring. So maybe once a week you um, model something to somebody else, and you let people know that you can help them with things. Anything you're stuck on that I can help you with, maybe ask that, text that to people that you think might need your help. Volunteer or join a group. I belong to Rotary. I just joined it like not even a year ago, because I wanted to get involved in my community. Get involved in your school in anything that you want to. And that's not everyday stuff. That's every month. You do something for an hour with people. But all of that grows your impact. It grows your legacy. It makes you feel like you're pivoting, not like you're transitioning, like you're active and making controlled decisions about your future and about your current life now, as opposed to feeling like you're being led. You're leading yourself. So when we start to think about relationships, this is emotional. And, this is a time when people can be going through divorce, any kind of other relationship issues. And this is when we need to blend emotional coping with concrete things that we can do. Because we have to acknowledge that there's going to be some emotional stuff that happens. So you could have any kind of grief. It could be a divorce. It could be a loss of someone. And this can feel like failure. It can feel like fear of the future. But this is not supposed to be where you stay the same. You're supposed to grow from this. This is a time when you can say, how can I take this and grow in a new way? That's easier said than done. We need support with this. We need to be connecting with others during this. This is not a time to say, I'm going to do this by myself. I can go this alone. I can handle it all on my own. Emotions require others. So if you're in a state like this, use the grounding exercises that I just talked about to help you to free your mind when you start to overthink things. And you can journal. You can start to write things, but connect with others. Absolutely. That's the one main key thing, is that we need to be really working on our connections with others, particularly when we have something that's in our life that's negative, right? And that we need to grow from that. So try asking, finish this sentence. Even though this hurts, I know now that I need more what? Fill in that blank. Maybe you need more respect, more calm, more honesty, whatever that word is. When you're able to say that, it helps you to then say, oh, okay, I can work with this. There's something I can do with this. I've just named a need that I have. I've identified a need that I have, and I can shift towards the meaning that that has. I can do something with that. I can pivot with that. If I say I need more respect, okay, how am I going to go about getting that? I can change and tweak a few little things. I'm going to require that people treat me in a certain way, or I'm not going to interact with them. I am going to I need more calm. What can I do to ground myself? How can I bring more calm into the chaos? I went over before some of the grounding techniques. Those are helpful in this kind of a time. This is useful. You can use those. They're not big things that you have to really work for a long time at or become an expert in. They're pretty easy. So when you start to identify and shift towards getting that meaning in your life, that reduces those fears. It reduces the negative feeling. It makes you feel like you're connected with others, a part of the world, and working towards something that you need or want. So these are some of the things that, when we're thinking about midlife, we have control. And that's one of the main things that we need to know, is that it can feel messy. It can feel chaotic. It can feel like a transition is something that is happening to us, but it's not. We are at a time where we're pivoting, we're creating our new future, we're creating our present, and we can calm the chaos just by doing simple activities. So I hope this is helpful today. I'm going to be back probably at the same time again tomorrow. But I hope if you like this, you will subscribe or follow, that you will check out the other videos that I have, and that you'll send me a message if there's something else you want to hear about that I didn't touch on today. And thank you again for all the likes. That matters a lot to me. You make impact when you do that, and you made my day better. So thank you, and have a great day.